I'll never forget that night. The night everything I believed in, trust, love, loyalty, cracked like glass beneath my feet. It was a Friday. We had plans, or at least, I thought we did. Dinner at our usual place. That little Italian restaurant near the river where the candles flicker against the windows and the smell of garlic and wine fills the air. She'd texted earlier, "Hey, work's running late. Can we reschedule for tomorrow?" No big deal. It had happened before. I told her it was fine, but something in her message felt off, too polished, too quick, like it had been rehearsed. You know that gut feeling, the quiet alarm that doesn't shout, but hums low in your chest? Yeah, that. It started buzzing the second I read her text. I tried to shake it off, ordered takeout, scrolled mindlessly through my phone, but my mind kept replaying her tone, her sudden busy schedule, the way she'd been distant lately. Her laugh had changed. Her texts were shorter, and the warmth that used to live in her eyes whenever she looked at me, that had been replaced with something cold, distracted. Still, I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous one, the paranoid one. I trusted her, or at least, I thought I did, but fate has a cruel sense of timing. Because that night, around 9:30, I got a message from my friend Ryan, a simple one, just a photo, no caption. And in that photo, under the dim lights of that same Italian restaurant, sat my girlfriend, laughing, leaning forward, her hand resting on the arm of another man. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. I just stared at the image, hoping my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe it was an old picture. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe anything but what it clearly was. But the timestamp said tonight. And her hair, her outfit, it was exactly what she'd worn earlier when she said she was working late. That was the moment something inside me went still. Not broken still. Like the calm before a storm. I didn't reply to Ryan, didn't call her, didn't do anything. I just sat there staring at that photo, feeling every part of me go numb. All those memories we'd built, the late-night talks, the road trips, the quiet mornings, they started flashing like scenes from a movie that was suddenly ending. And the worst part, I couldn't even be angry. Not yet, just empty. The next morning she texted me like nothing had happened. "Morning babe, hope you slept well. Coffee later." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply box. I could have confronted her right there, thrown the photo in her face, demanded answers. But something in me stopped. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was disbelief. Maybe it was instinct. Whatever it was, I decided not to confront yet. Instead I replied normally, "Sure, coffee sounds good." When she arrived, she smiled, that same sweet, practiced smile I used to fall for. But this time, I saw it differently. It wasn't warmth, it was performance. We sat across from each other in the cafe, and I watched her talk about her crazy workload, her late meetings, her tired eyes. Every word felt rehearsed, every gesture calculated. And I realized something chilling. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was pretending to love me while doing it. That, right there, broke something deeper than anger ever could. Because betrayal doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it arrives quietly in a smile, a lie, a soft voice saying, "I love you," when they don't mean it anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, laughing, leaning in close, sharing secrets that used to belong to me. And something inside me whispered, "You can't unsee this. You can't go back." I thought about calling her out. I imagined the confrontation, her denial, the tears, the excuses. But then another thought hit me, one that would change everything. What if I didn't confront her? What if I let her think I didn't know? What if, instead of reacting, I started watching, learning, planning? Because maybe, just maybe, the best revenge isn't loud. Maybe it's patient, quiet, perfectly timed, and right there, lying in the dark, I made a silent promise. I wouldn't explode. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't even let her see me hurt. I'd become calm, controlled, calculated. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest revenge of all. You never really notice how silence sounds until you're pretending not to know the truth. It's like living inside a movie where everyone else is reading from a script, except you've already seen the ending. That's how my days started to feel after that night. Each morning she'd text me the same way, cheerful, predictable, sweet, and each time I'd stare at my phone, reading her words like they were lines in a play I no longer believed in. I began to study her, her tone, her movements, the pauses between her words. When she said she was working late, I'd casually ask, "Who's there with you?" She'd always answer too quickly, like someone who'd already rehearsed the lie. At first, I thought maybe I was reading too much into small things, but the universe has a way of giving you proof when you least expect it. One evening, about a week later, I drove to her apartment unannounced, not to confront her, just to see. Her car wasn't there. Lights were off, but parked 2 spots over was a sleek black BMW, one I didn't recognize, so I waited. For hours. It's strange how time moves when you're waiting to confirm your worst fear. Every sound feels louder. Every car that passes makes your pulse spike. And yet, when she finally arrived, laughing, walking arm in arm with that same guy from the photo, everything went completely quiet. They didn't see me. I stayed far enough in the shadows to be invisible. He opened her door, leaned in, kissed her like he'd done it 1,000 times, and she smiled. that same warm, familiar smile that used to belong to me. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my hands went numb, not from rage, but from realization, because it wasn't just betrayal, it was routine. They'd done this before. Many times I sat there, watching them disappear into her apartment, and something inside me shifted. It was like all the pain folded inward and hardened into clarity. For the first time, I didn't feel weak. I felt awake, sharp, focused. That night, I drove home in silence. No music, no tears, just the low hum of the engine and the sound of my thoughts sharpening like a blade. I knew now, this wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a story that had been playing behind my back for months. The next day, I started gathering pieces, quietly, methodically. I wasn't looking for revenge yet, not really. I just needed the truth, all of it. So I went through our messages, rereading every conversation, every moment. I'd ignored my intuition. Little things started to pop out, names she'd mentioned once and never again. Excuses that didn't add up, gaps in her timeline. It was like assembling a puzzle where every piece fit into one ugly picture. And as I uncovered more, I realized something darker. She wasn't just hiding him. She was using me. That there were receipts for dinners she'd paid for on my credit card, gifts that weren't for me, hotel reservations under my name. She'd built her affair using my trust as the foundation. That was when my pain turned into something colder, not rage, calculation, because now, this wasn't just betrayal. It was theft of time, of money, of emotion, and I wasn't about to let it end quietly. The next few days, I became an actor in my own life, smiling when I needed to, laughing at the right moments. All the while I was studying her every lie, every flicker of guilt in her eyes. When she'd tell me she loved me, I'd look her straight in the eye and say it back, not because I meant it, but because I wanted her to believe I still did. Because when you want the truth, you don't rip the mask off, you let them keep wearing it until it slips on its own. And soon, it did. One evening I suggested we take a weekend trip, just us, I said. Her reaction was a little too hesitant. She smiled, nodded, said she'd check her schedule, but I noticed the flicker in her eyes, panic, like she'd just realized her double life was colliding. That's when I knew I had her. Not physically, not legally, but psychologically. Because betrayal has a pattern. Once you start seeing it, you can predict it. And I was done being the one fooled. Over the next few weeks, I played my part perfectly, brought her flowers, complimented her, made her feel safe again. I let her believe everything was fine, that I was still the same trusting guy she could lie to without consequence. Meanwhile, behind that calm smile, I was setting the stage, backing up our messages, gathering proof, tracking dates, receipts, and everything she'd done under my name each night. When she fell asleep next to me, yes, she still did, I'd stare at the ceiling and whisper to myself, she has no idea, none at all. But somewhere deep down I also started asking a harder question, one that scared me more than her betrayal. Why did I let it get this far? Why didn't I walk away the moment I knew? And the answer was as painful as the truth itself. Because part of me still loved her, or maybe loved who she used to be. It's strange. Love doesn't disappear when trust does. It lingers. It confuses you. It makes you want to fix what's already shattered. But late one night, while scrolling through her social media, I stumbled on something that killed that last bit of hope. A post hidden from me, but visible to others. A photo of her and him, laughing, wine glasses in hand, with the caption, "Some chapters are meant to be secret." That line stuck with me. Some chapters are meant to be secret. She'd written it like it was poetry, but all I saw was mockery. That was the night I stopped being the victim, and started writing my own chapter, one she'd never see coming. I didn't sleep that night, not because of anger. That part was gone. It was something else now. Focus, cold, sharp, deliberate focus. By sunrise I had a plan. Not the kind where you lash out or make a scene. No, this one would be quiet, precise, like closing a door that should have been shut a long time ago. You see, the best revenge isn't chaos. It's clarity. It's walking away so gracefully that they start to wonder how much you really knew and when. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. Uncertainty, confusion, loss of control. But I also wanted to end this story with something more dignity. Because if betrayal made me smaller, I wanted redemption to make me greater, so I started with the truth, the raw, undeniable kind that leaves no room for excuses. I printed the screenshots, the receipts, the hotel bookings, every photo, every message, neatly organized, chronological, no drama, just facts. Then I wrote a letter, not a rage-filled confession or a breakup speech. A simple, measured message. It began with 5 words, "I know everything, goodbye." But before I sent it, I wanted to make sure she'd feel the silence before the storm that week. I pulled back, slowly, strategically, stopped initiating texts, stopped asking about her day. When she spoke, I listened, but I didn't react. And the funny thing about liars is they panic when you stop believing them. She started telling stories I never asked for. "Just hanging with friends," she'd say. "You can call if you want." But I didn't. And every time I didn't, I could feel her uncertainty growing. She could sense the shift, but couldn't name it. That's the thing about guilt. It makes silence unbearable. At work, I focused harder than ever. Started hitting the gym again, eating better, sleeping right. It wasn't just about getting even, it was about getting back to myself, back to who I was before I let love blind me. By the end of the week, I had everything ready, the evidence, the letter, the exit. All that was left was the performance. That Friday I invited her over. She arrived smiling, pretending everything was normal, maybe even sensing that I was distant but not knowing why. She wore the same perfume she used to wear when she first met me. The irony almost made me laugh. We sat on the couch, side by side. She talked about her week, about how busy she'd been. I nodded, watching her carefully, not with hate, but with finality. After a while, I said, I have something for you. She smiled. Oh yeah, what is it? I handed her a small brown envelope. Inside were the photos, the receipts, the messages, everything. Her smile faded before she even opened it. Her hands trembled, and for a second I almost felt sorry for her. Almost she flipped through the pages, each one pulling her face deeper into disbelief. Then she whispered, I can explain. I shook my head. No, you've done enough explaining. The silence that followed was deafening. No yelling, no begging. Just two people sitting in the ruins of something that used to be real. When she finally spoke, it wasn't what I expected. She said, I didn't mean to hurt you. And I believed that, in a strange way. She didn't mean to hurt me, she just never cared enough not to. I stood up, calm and steady. I'm not angry, I said. I'm grateful. She frowned, confused. I continued, because now I know who I am when everything falls apart, and I like that version of me a lot more. I handed her the letter, the short one. She read it silently. I know everything. Goodbye. Then I walked away. No looking back. That as the door closed behind me, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. In the weeks that followed, she tried reaching out, texts, calls, long paragraphs filled with apologies. I never replied, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because the silence said everything words couldn't. And with every day that passed, the weight lifted. I started rebuilding piece by piece. New habits, new goals, new people, but most importantly, a new standard. Because the truth is, revenge doesn't heal you, growth does. And the best revenge is becoming someone who no longer needs it. Still, sometimes, late at night, I'd think back to that chapter, not with bitterness but with understanding, because she didn't just teach me what betrayal feels like, she taught me what self-respect really means, and that's the kind of lesson you never forget. Time has a strange way of healing you. It doesn't erase the pain, it just teaches you how to carry it differently. Months had passed since that night, the night I walked away. My days were simple now, quiet mornings, strong coffee, long runs, honest work. I'd stopped checking her social media. They've stopped replaying what-ifs in my head. The silence that used to feel empty now felt peaceful. I was finally learning to breathe again. And then one afternoon, she came back. It started with a message. A short, cautious text. Hey, I know it's been a while. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time, her name glowing on my screen like a ghost from another life. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep my peace untouched. But another part was curious. Curious not about her, but about me. How would I respond now? Would I still feel that sting, that bitterness? Or would I finally see her for what she was? A chapter, not a wound. I didn't reply. Not that day. Not the next. But on the third day I typed, sure, let's talk. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, the same place where we'd once shared laughter and plans for the future. When she walked in, she looked smaller somehow. Not in size, but in presence. Like someone carrying the weight of her own choices. She smiled faintly. You look good, thanks, I said. You too. Small talk. The kind that fills silence but means nothing. Then she said it, the line they always say when it's too late. I've changed. I didn't react, just listened. She told me how she'd ended things with him, how she realized what she lost, how she couldn't stop thinking about me. Her voice trembled somewhere between regret and desperation. I didn't interrupt. I didn't need to, because somewhere between her words, I saw the truth, not about her, but about myself. The man sitting across from her wasn't the same one she betrayed. That version of me was gone, the one who begged for honesty, the one who tried to prove his worth. This version didn't need validation. He had peace. When she finally stopped talking, she asked, can we try again? I looked at her for a long time, and in that silence I felt everything, the memories, the pain, the growth, the distance. Then I said, quietly but firmly, no. Her eyes widened. Why not? Don't you miss me? I smiled sadly. I did, for a long time, but I realized, I don't miss you. I miss the person I thought you were. She blinked, confused. I continued, you were a lesson, a painful one, but necessary, and I learned it. She looked down, tears filling her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered, and for the first time, I believed her. But sorry doesn't rebuild what you destroyed. I stood up to leave and she said, so that's it. I turned back and said, that's peace, not revenge, not hate, just peace. And as I walked out of that cafe, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Lightness started hit me then. Closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you no longer need them to. That night, I drove home with the windows down, the city lights blurring past me. The radio played a song we used to love, and instead of pain, I smiled. Because it wasn't our song anymore, it was just a song, and I was finally free to enjoy it again. In the days that followed, she tried once more. A long message this time, full of what-ifs and promises to change. But I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because some stories are meant to end. I'd spent months rebuilding the man she broke, and I wasn't about to let her touch what I'd healed. You know, people think revenge is about getting even, but it's not. It's about reclaiming your power piece by piece until you no longer need to hurt someone to prove you've moved on. I thought my revenge would be making her feel what I felt. But real revenge is peace. Peace that confuses them. Peace that makes them realize they no longer have control over your emotions. Peace that turns your silence into a mirror, showing them exactly who they are. And the best part, you don't need to say a word. I didn't realize how quiet peace could be until I finally had it. It wasn't the silence of loneliness, it was the silence of balance. Of knowing that I didn't need to fight anymore. Not for love, not for validation, not for closure. For the first time in a long time, I woke up without that heavy feeling in my chest. No more replaying old memories, no more imaginary arguments in my head. The past had finally lost its grip on me, and in that stillness, I started to see everything clearly. She wasn't my villain, and I wasn't her victim. We were just two people, lost in our own flaws, trying to find happiness in the wrong place. She chased excitement, I chased permanence. We both lost. But in losing her, I started doing things I had once stopped doing, not for revenge, but for life. Early morning runs, reading again, cooking for one without feeling lonely, meeting new people, not to fill a void, but to share space with peace. I even started journaling. At first it was messy fragments of thoughts, half-finished sentences, but slowly it became my therapy. Writing helped me untangle my feelings, one word at a time. And the more I wrote, the more I realized something simple but powerful. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about freeing yourself from the weight they left behind. I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Months turned into a year. Life kept moving, new faces, new places, new chances. And one day I crossed paths with someone new. She wasn't loud or flashy. She was calm, the kind of calm that feels like home after a storm. She didn't promise forever. She promised honesty, and after everything I'd been through, that was enough. I didn't tell her about the past right away. Not because I was hiding it, but because it no longer defined me. It was just a story I'd lived through, not a scar I carried anymore. And when I finally did tell her, she smiled and said, maybe everything that broke you was just preparing you to love better. That line stayed with me, because she was right. Pain teaches you what comfort really feels like. Betrayal teaches you what trust truly means. And losing someone teaches you how to never lose yourself again. Looking back now, I don't see betrayal, I see transformation. Every sleepless night, every unanswered question, every silent drive, all of it shaped me into someone stronger, clearer, and more grounded. Revenge never gave me peace. Acceptance did. I stopped asking why did she do it, and started asking, what did it teach me? Because at the end of the day, revenge fades, but lessons stay. Sometimes, people walk into your life to teach you how not to be treated. Sometimes, they break you just enough for you to rebuild differently. And sometimes, the ending you didn't want is the freedom you always needed. So, if you're listening to this and your heart still hurts, if you're stuck replaying the betrayal, the lies, the loss, take a breath. Don't chase revenge. Don't chase closure. Chase yourself. Because the best revenge is not proving them wrong. It's proving to yourself that you can rise, rebuild, and move on without bitterness. One day they'll remember what they had and what they lost. They'll wonder how you found peace without them. And you won't need to say a word. Your silence will tell the whole story. And that was my story. Not about pain, not about revenge, but about becoming. Because sometimes, what breaks you also builds you. If this story touched something inside you, if you've ever been betrayed, hurt, or walked away stronger, then you already know. Healing is the real revenge. Here on AHT Revenge Stories, we tell more than just tales of betrayal. We tell stories of people who rise quietly, powerfully, and unapologetic ally. So if you believe in karma, justice, and emotional comebacks, make sure to subscribe, tap that bell icon, and join our growing community of listeners who know that the best revenge is peace, because your story might just be the next one we tell. This is AHT Revenge Stories, where every heartbreak becomes a comeback. Thanks for watching. Stay strong, stay patient, and never forget, sometimes silence is the loudest revenge.